too late, way too late, born too late to be a punk. Born too late, way too late, born too late for that outro, that outro.
Welcome to the Born to Late podcast. This is Josh Rutledge here with Jay Castro. And our special guest tonight is, I guess we could say he's the Alec Baldwin of our show because he's been on like 6 times. And so our friend Kevin McGovern is here, and we are excited because we're going to actually talk to Kevin about like the 10 records that were life-changing for him. In particular, like the 10 records that changed his life in the respect that it's what inspired him to start creating the music and writing the music that he's been known for now for many, many years. So we are excited to talk to Kevin and just get into like this amazing music and how it affected him. So welcome to the program, Kevin. We are glad to have you back on Born to Late.
Hey, thank you, Josh. It's great to be back. I love being on here. And yeah, I'm really looking. I was really been looking forward to the show, and have my list ready to go with the top 10 records that changed my life. Primarily coming from the time period of when I first, right before I first started the Prostitutes, when I first started that band, and that kind of inspired me to write the music that I did and approach it the way that I did. So, in regards to that list, in no particular order with any of these, I'm just going to kind of go by the way I have it written down. The first one, which I wouldn't call it, a punk rock record per se. I would say it's the ultimate new wave record. Would be the Waitresses. Wasn't Tomorrow Wonderful? From 1982, and I love the vocals of Patty Donahue, and this was influential in the way that it taught me that attitude can carry an entire album, which I didn't think was possible until I heard the Waitresses record. And I kind of picked it up by accident. It was like in '95, and I was like in the record store, and I wanted something like new to buy, and there just wasn't like anything. So I was going through the used bins, and then I've always been a new wave fan, and Wasn't Tomorrow Wonderful was sitting in there. It was like $3, and I just knew they were his single, and I'm like, how bad could the rest of it be? I'll take a chance on this. And my mind was totally blown because it was so much different than the other stuff I'd been listening to. It had such a different approach, but at the same time, it was very punk in attitude.
Yeah.
Come to the fact that they were just doing whatever they felt like doing, and they really didn't care what you thought about it. Kind of making up their own rules as they went along, and just I don't know, kind of the lyrics, her attitude, this awesome talk sing style she has, like she kind of like turned like sarcasm like into an art form, and I love that. Just like there's like this venom, but it's hopeful at the same time, but also self-deprecating, self-doubtful, and I just loved how vulnerable she kind of leaves herself in that space, and I was like, that's something to aspire to, and it challenged me as a vocalist and songwriter, to be as authentic and as genuine as possible, and that's how great records, are made. And it definitely plays like an album. I'd say, if you're listening to it, you kind of have to listen to side A, then go to side B, and just kind of go the whole way through. And there's not a bad song on there. The definite standouts would be No Guilt, Pussy Strut, and the track Wasn't Tomorrow Wonderful. If you're new to the Waitresses and want to go over it again, I'd recommend this album and those 3 songs. And then, just kind of dig into the rest of it.
Yeah, back when people made It's like I feel like a lot of times, I mean, not maybe bands that you know that are putting out records that we talk to and we review, but I feel like a lot of times when bigger bands come with albums, it sounds more like something of like a singles collection or something. But I feel like the art of making an LP where the whole thing kind of flows together, and you have, like you said, you have to listen to from side A to side B and through the end. That actually kind of takes you on something. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
something that's like a, I don't want to say like a story or whatever, but it's definitely an emotional ride that you kind of have to see through playing an album like that.
yeah, definitely. And that album in particular, it kind of plays like a diary. You kind of get to hear about what her apartment life is like, how many overdue bills she has, like what a letdown adulthood is, and and that's what I loved about it. It was just kind of like this honesty to it. And even better was the fact that they were from Akron, Ohio. Just working class town, middle of nowhere, not that much different than Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. But at the same time, could have like this huge top 40 hit, be featured like in movies. The Square Pegs TV show at the time, which is all
Right.
Southern California based, and here, these guys are from Akron, Ohio, and I thought that was cool. You don't have to be from LA or New York, um, you know, to get your sound heard. Just your attitude, your presentation, just your authenticity can carry you, that far if you're genuine about what you're doing, and that really comes through in the music and her approach. You can really like feel her emotions as she's talking, singing, and it's very danceable. I guess that's what we call it, like new wave with some post punk influences going on, and eclectic, quirky, and it's cool. It shouldn't work, but it totally does, and I love that.
Right.
I love that. It's like this beautiful collision of just different ideas, different sounds, and it just everything complements each other. So yeah, it's great. I love their stuff. So I love their second album too, Bruisology, just as good. It's a great. I prefer to that one. It's more like a flawed masterpiece, which I'm a huge fan of. I love flawed masterpieces, flawed people. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so great record. Definitely check it out. Moving on, my next pick is definitely no way around it. Would be 1982's "Back from Samoa" by the Angry Samoans.
Hmm.
Yeah, now that was a game changer. Especially speaking, in reference to the prostitutes. Like, this is one, like the moment I heard it, I was like, this is what I need to be doing. This is, and it's just like brutally minimalistic, and its approach. It's very simple, but it rocks, and it's played with like the viciousness of like any of the raging hardcore bands like during that time period. Um, but it's kind of like wrapped up in shades of punk, and the lyrical content is just as hilarious as it is clever. Um,
Yeah.
it always sounds to me like the Angry Simone's lyrics. It's kind of like, to me, it always reminded me of like some type of like fading stand-up comedy star, like at the end of the rope on the downcline of their career, what their take on life would be. That's and something about that is just so relatable. And, obviously they're just saying whatever they want. They don't care whether you like it or not, and they're taking shots at everyone. And I love it, and it's kind of a mockery of punk rock, which almost makes it more punk rock than anything at the time, So it's genius in a lot of ways. Um, so I mean, and even cooler with that, years later, I ended up befriending Mike Saunders, Metal Mike, online. When I was living in California, I'd go on stage and 2 or 3 shows and go up and sing a few songs off that record. And yeah, that was like the greatest thing ever. But you think, well, Angry Samoans, you're playing, in California, there's gonna be this big turnout. We were playing to like El Segundo to like 10 people, like on a Saturday night. And I was like, oh shit, he's getting the same turnout as I am right now, so that just made him like more relatable. But that's and I do hear people mention it, from time to time, but I think it should definitely get a lot more respect than it does. Because I mean, it's one of the punchiest things around, one of the punchiest things ever written. But it has gotten props from like major stars like that. I think did like a Foo Fighters, somebody covered Gas Chamber.
Really?
One of their CD singles, I remember Mike had told me, and the royalty check he got from that was the biggest payout he ever received from Angry Samoans, because Dave Grohl decided to cover one of the songs. And I guess
Oh,
nice sum of money,
man.
So yeah, he was happy about that.
Yeah.
But had it not been for that, but still, that didn't really break them through to the masses. Let's say the way that Kurt Cobain referencing the Wipers kind of made the Wipers bigger. I wouldn't say that Simone's going to same kind of accolades or respect as the Wipers, which is awesome. Which is makes them funkier than ever. But I just love how like short the songs are. It's just straight to the point, and it just knocks you over in just very little time. And just like how thrifty the whole package was. Like they just don't waste any time. And I'm like, this is what I need to do, like in my own songwriting. Like I need to trim the fat, self-indulgence, like long solos. Nobody cares about your stupid intro, your stupid outro, your stupid fucking middle part. Like what are you trying to say? Like, what the fuck's your point? Get to it. And that's what I learned. And to kind of like take that approach, with my own personal life too, dealing with the world. You can't wait around. You just gotta go for it. Make the first attack, make the first move, and what happens happens. And the better it is, the more people are going to hate you for it. And in the case of the Angry Samoans, they have a lot of haters, and they did back then. I think they definitely took a lot of shots at people that deserved it. Not everyone, but a lot of them. I thought they were coming from like an educated place. I wouldn't say there's any stupidity is intentional. Nobody in that band's unintelligent. So.
Yeah, man. Angry Samoans are probably like, out of the bands that came. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more, but I feel like they should be mentioned right up there with anybody else that came out of the Southern California in the late 70s, early 80s. It's like, why aren't they mentioned with whoever? My mind's blank. Agent Orange, Adolescence, DI. It's like I feel like Angry Samoans are like one of the most underrated bands from that time in that place. And it's funny that you mentioned this album, because I was listening to Back from Samoa, and I was posting our thing on Instagram, our picture on Instagram, and I'm like, I wonder if they have Lights Out on here. And so I put Lights Out to our promo for
Nice.
our last show. But
yeah, that's a great one. Lights Out, man. Like that song gets me going every time I hear it, man. It gives me chills to this day, and just gets like the blood flowing. It gets me excited, man. Like just gonna start breaking shit. It's just, and the hooks are so good. Like it's catchy. Like it's well written shit. Like it gets stuck in your head. I love it. I love the ridiculous lyrics too, man. I think it's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, just snotty
shit. Yeah,
snotty, bratty, sarcastic.
Yeah. Self-deprecating too. Once again, that's a recurrent theme with a lot of the artists I like. Just there's a lot of self-hatred on that record. Kind of dig deeper with Back from Samoa, and that made it very relatable to me too. So I would say with any punk rocker, there's probably a good amount of self-hatred kind of going on, and that's kind of where your depression comes from, the anxiety, and you kind of use the music to kind of get it out of your system. So once again, it's another very relatable point. kind of hate yourself, but love yourself for hating yourself at the same time. That makes some sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Whatever that's called. I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, that's on there. So, but yeah, definitely overlooked. And I think, having spoken with Mike over the years, they just didn't kiss ass to the right reviewers, the right influencers of that time. So, in fact, they talked a lot of shit on the, dream leaders of the time, the scene makers,
Rodney.
gatekeepers, and yeah, and so their revenge on them was like, then we're not going to mention you. So I get that. Getting slighted and stuff because you just refused to kiss some douchebag's ass that you wanted to see dead. You can stand him, and you refuse to act like you like the guy. So what's wrong with that? It's honest.
Yeah, totally.
No good deed goes unpunished.
It's refreshing, man. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
One of the things that it always, I mean, this might have me go on a tangent, but it always bothers me when you're seeing interviews with people and they're sitting, oh yeah, we were on tour with this band and they're such a-holes and they treat us like crap, and singer, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, but we're not going to mention any names because, and I'm like, yeah, you're not going to mention any names because you're afraid that sooner or later those people are going to, come back and bite you in the ass and it'll stunt your career right then and there, which it probably will. But come on, man. It's like, call people out every now and again,
If more people would do it, it wouldn't be a problem, but then you're going to get slighted. But, at the same time, I think by like kissing ass to those people, you're contaminating the art. Because, that's a legacy that's left behind. I think with those artists, at the end of the day, when I hear that they kissed ass because they were worried that, this could hurt my career, man, I kind of lose respect for it.
It seems like that's what it always boils down to.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's kind of, I don't know. I don't like that. That cheapens the whole experience, And if I want that, you've got your 9 to 5, you got your day job to experience that. I don't want to experience that in the things that I'm passionate about, that I look forward to, So that's why I kind of get pissed about it, It's treason in a way. I think, At the same time, I get where they're coming from, but to put up with like that kind of abuse, nobody's holding a gun to your head. It's just depends on your perspective on things. How much you're willing to take and what the reasons are that you're doing music. You do it because you have no choice and that's how you express yourself, or I want to be a big star. If you want to be a big star, then I'm not going to listen to your shit. That's just where I stand. That's me.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are big stars and they just happen to write some good shit. Not anymore, but in the past. I'm not going to take that from them. There might be somebody I can't stand, but I'm not going to. If they're talented, can write a good song, I'm not going to take that away from them.
Yeah.
I don't want to live with them. I don't want them to move in with me. That's cool. I hate you, but you write good music. So be it. But I just want to have a lot of respect for this person.
Yeah.
Or your career as a whole. I wonder.
Yep, I get it.
But yeah, that's hopefully one day they'll kind of get the respect that they're due. It'll come. And then another next one on my list, another band that's criminally overlooked, criminally underrated. I'm gonna go with Naked Ray Gun's Throb album from 1985. And it's just masterful in every sense of the word. And kind of what blew me away about Naked Ray Gun, I guess, was their approach, or John Haggerty's approach to guitar playing, and Jeff Mazzoti's vocal approach. And he kind of treats vocals more like an instrument than it's like just some punk rock singer. And I always thought that was cool. Like his voice, he uses it, like an instrument, and it's kind of like mixed and lower than other singers. And it's like this crazy, I don't know, it's like early, any phase of like Big Black, kind of crossed, with the Buzzcocks. and with some Gang of Four bizarreness. But then at the same time, they're on that record, they write anthems that are right up there with anything Stiff Little Fingers ever did. Where you want to scream along with it. And the fact they could combine all of those elements and turn it into their own sound blew me away. And I always thought they had a very original sound. And I've compared them to all those other bands, but they definitely just sound like Naked Raygun. And when I first heard them, like 87, 88, I was hooked right away. I just love his vocals, the melodies, super catchy stuff, and just a very different approach in the songwriting department in regards to like song structures, the bass playing, the guitars, stuff you normally don't hear with a band that kind of has like these very powerful melodic types of songs. They have these bizarre like interludes thrown in, and it's cool. And the album's kind of all over the place. It's weird. It's jarring at times, and you almost don't know what to think of it the first time you hear it, but you keep wanting to go back to it, and then it just kind of keeps growing on you. To this day, every time I put it on, it's kind of like how some people treat a favorite movie. Like I hear something that I never heard before.
Yeah.
Element, and that's what I love about it. It's like timeless, man. It's an amazing record, and I just don't hear it mentioned, like the way people talk about, let's say, I don't know, Minor Threat or like Black Flag. You just don't hear Naked Raygun all that much, And they put out a lot of records, played a lot of shows, paid their dues like anyone else.
Yeah.
Not sure why, they kind of get overlooked and not as mentioned, as much as the others.
Yeah.
Why they're not a T-shirt band, I don't know.
Right.
I always thought they had a cool band name. It's like
Yeah. Hey, dude, can you do me a favor? Is there any way you could move closer to the microphone?
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes in and out. And don't worry about it. I'll cut this part out.
Okay. How about now? I moved it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
I think it was like sliding down. It's like on the thing here.
Oh.
I'll put it like right here. That's all good. I think it was like sliding down while I was talking.
Yeah,
How's
that
that?
sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got it propped up. Yeah, it was like the whole way down there. Shit. Where was it like cutting off at? Should I go back and just start?
No, you're good. You're fine.
All right.
But yeah. Naked Raygun is definitely not. You don't see their T-shirts at Forever 21 or like you see awesome. Misfits and then a whole bunch of other ones.
Yeah, and no Naked Raygun. In fact, I think there were a lot more. They were maybe like too intelligent and too sophisticated for their time. There's a lot of intelligence with that band, and maybe that could be it too. So they do have a lot of like obscure references in their songs, like weird pop culture, like obscure comic books, and then they'll kind of head into like political things, and then go into like dark poetry, and then just really abstract, ideas. But I would definitely say some of my favorite. If you had to start with Naked Raygun, that'd be the record to start with. My all-time favorite tune by them is Roller Queen. I think that's one of the greatest punk rock tunes ever written. And that thing just pounds away in a way nothing else does. And it's just got this crazy rhythm to it. And from the first time I heard it to this day, like if I want to get the blood flowing, like Roller Queen by Naked Raygun is like one of my go-to songs.
Yeah, for sure.
Mixtape material there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how many bands were doing like melodic punk rock in 1987? Like I don't think there were that many.
No, there weren't. No. The only one that comes to mind, maybe remember like MIA.
Yeah.
They were kind of doing it, but their records were impossible to find. I didn't even realize who they were until like the early '90s. I think I heard them on a Flipside compilation. But yeah, at that point in time, like Naked Raygun was the only like true, authentic, like melodic punk rock band, at the time. everything else was kind of leaning more towards like alternative rock or like metal. That's a like weird time period.
Oh,
For
yeah.
punk. And those guys were kind of like referencing the classics, Buzzcock, Stiff Little Fingers. I think all those bands had kind of fallen out of favor by that point in time. They didn't get the respect that they do nowadays. It was kind of uncool. It kind of seemed like it because you just didn't really hear about them until
No.
90s resurgence.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they were all kind of like dead in the water, or trying to like add keyboards to their sound, or go pop, or go heavier.
Yeah, go a little bit on the more metal,
to try to get an audience.
Yeah.
Naked Ray Gun were just out there doing their thing, and they did it well, but they kind of just never had that big breakthrough, which I don't see how a band like that could have,
No.
But I think they came close with that one record. I mean, they were on 120 Minutes MTV. They showed their video a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah. That song, Home. It's on the record, first record, though, where I think John Haggerty had left the band. They got a different guy playing guitar. It's not their best record, but still a good Naked Ray Gun record. But yeah, they kind of peaked out already by the time they were on MTV, and they'd only show it every now and then. It was kind of like a watered down version of what they once were. What I thought, like some record executive got in there. It's like, hey, you guys need to like lighten up your sound. So it was kind of sad, yeah. At the same time, but there's a few ragers on the record. There's a few good tunes, but overall, it's not their best moment. But yeah, Throb, I'd say that's
nice. Yeah, it's a good one.
And then moving on, another one of my favorites. That some people mention it from time to time, but I definitely don't think it gets the respect that it's due. You hear about the Adolescents, GSOL, Circle Jerks, but the Crowd, A World Apart. From I guess there's a debate on the date. It's either 1980 or 81. So I think the back of the album says 1981, but the label on the record says 1980. So it was recorded in 1980. You know that. And this album, this is another one that kind of blew my mind because it has. It's not what you expect. It's not. I wouldn't say it's your traditional beach punk record. It's kind of like this hard melodic, like beach new wave, with like these weird, like post-punk influences kind of strewn throughout. They're doing different rhythms. It's not all just. It's not like there's stuff on the Beach Boulevard compilation where it's all just kind of straight ahead. Ramonesy sped up like that. It's. I would say a very introspective album. Once again, they start to kind of touch on more mature themes, kind of like what a letdown adulthood is. And heartache lasting longer, than it should, and just getting kind of hung up on like the downers of life. That's what I, interpret it as. But super catchy. Right Time is on there. Can't Talk. There's definitely some ragers, but it has, I guess, it influenced me in a way that you could be punk, be introspective, and you could be sophisticated with your songwriting while still keeping your sound raw. There's definitely I would say a big Buzzcocks influence on there. Some Gang of Four, new wave, and they definitely make it all their own. And in the lyrical department, I just love the lyrics. A World Apart, I could really relate. Some people might find a lot of like themes or topics a downer. But that point in my life, it was kind of uplifting for me because I could relate. It's like, oh shit, somebody else has been through what I'm going through, and kind of live to tell about it. And I don't know. In my opinion, I think that this record should have sold like 5 million copies at the time, and it didn't. They got a lot of flack for it because it wasn't like the tracks on the Beach Boulevard comp. And I hate when people do that to bands. Like, they just want them to do the same song over and over. I'm like, they just listen to the same song over and over. It's like you don't want them to grow, you don't want them to evolve. I love when bands like take chances and do something different. kind of put
Yeah.
everything on the line, and they keep it genuine, authentic, and honest. And you can tell they put their heart and soul into the record. And I mean, it shows. It shows. And there's just a sincerity to that record, and there's kind of like this gloomy atmosphere that I love, like gloomy and vibrant at the same time, and kind of like the dark side of the beach lifestyle. Living in that area, it's not like all fun and games and everyone's happy 24/7. My life's great, and that really appealed to me. And they kind of go to the dark side of where your habits lead after a while. The things that worked when you're kind of in your teens, early 20s, end up taking dark twists and turns that you don't see coming. And you still got to live your life, and you don't kind of know how to get rid of them. So I thought that was a great record, and I thought it was brave on their part to actually release that, because they could have just gone ahead and just repeated what they had done before, and like some of the other bands did, just make every song sound the same, and maybe they wouldn't have been overlooked. But they didn't. They felt that they had to kind of stay true to their vision and where they were at that point in time, and that's the kind of thing that appeals to me.
Yeah.
That's the art of it all. That's where I recognize the art. I don't see a lot of art in somebody just repeating themselves over and over to move copies. I don't see what's artistic about that. You're just moving product, and I don't know, kind of just playing it safe. Playing it safe. It's real easy to write the same song over and over.
Yeah, man. And
Worrying
it's
about that.
like, yeah, sometimes you listen to bands that stay the same, and eventually you end up just kind of growing out of it.
Yeah,
When bands, it's cool when bands will grow with you, with their audience, and it's like, but like you said, if you want the same things, why you can just go back and listen to the old music.
right. Yeah, right. Or I can just have the same song, just keep playing it over and over and over. Just put on my playlist 20 times in a row. And I have done that. Yeah, I have done that plenty of times. But yeah, you burn out on it. It's kind of like if you just do the same thing at the same place every day and keep doing that every day for 5 years, it's going to get old after a while. It's going
Oh
to drive
yeah,
you crazy. It's boring.
and they end up sounding like watered down versions of their former selves.
Yeah,
Right? Bad Religion.
exactly. Exactly. And
Queers.
queers, yeah. Bad Religion, queers. To me, it reeks of, it's like desperation. You're trying too hard to move product, and you're kind of losing track of why you started doing this in the first place. But I guess
Yeah.
you got into it to move product, and treat it like a business, then you're successful. So it's all about intention. I think, as with everything in life, what is your intention? And that speaks volumes about a person. Once again, I just can't respect that. Being a music fan, a music lover myself, like somebody said, just a few units, make more product for the masses. Oh, if I water it down, I'll sell 100,000 more. So let's do that. I just don't get it. It doesn't make a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Sleep themselves at night, but I guess all that money makes it a lot easier though. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That definitely keeps a nice warm blanket
Yeah.
over you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's it's a philosophical question, kind of like at the end of the day, why you're here, what you're looking to get out of life, what your end game is. Everyone's different, so I can't speak for those bands or those songwriters, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But definitely overlooked. That album, it should get way more respect than it does.
You never really hear about that record. I mean, like, I'm glad you brought it up, because
Yeah,
I maybe didn't even know that record existed for like a long time. Like,
really.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, they had the tracks on Beach Boulevard. Oh, what? The Crowd had an album, and it's like, yeah, but you never saw that get reissued, or to talk about people
yeah. For the
discussing it the
longest.
way they would. Yeah.
Yeah, it just got a reissue. I think a few years back, on Radiation, like overseas, but just limited vinyl reissue. And probably it's just the people who already own the record bought it again for the most part. Maybe a few new people in there, but yeah, it's like it's a beautiful record, man. It's darkly, poetic, and it's a great record. And you just wonder like what happened and why people don't mention it, or they don't hear other people talk about it. So people are. So I'm not going to say I like it because I haven't heard anyone else say it. So it must suck or something, So yeah, definitely. But you'll hear it about every single Bad Religion record. They released one every, and every album sounds the same, and you can't mention the crowd doesn't get mentioned. It's criminal in my book.
Yep.
And
We are
then,
in agreement.
and then next, as always, this guy is going to polarize a lot of people. This was a highly influential record for me. Fell in love from the very first time I heard it, which would have been like 94, 95, somewhere in there. And that would be G.G. Allen, Always Was, Is, and Always Shall Be, from 1980. Now, to me, this record, it's not the G.G. Allen I think people are used to. When you hear, the first album, it has a lot of appeal. It's well crafted. They're almost bubblegum.
Yeah.
Like pop songs, but played like with like a, I don't know, like in the style of like the MC5 or like the Stooges, kind of like that. It's kind of gritty and the lyrics are hilarious, but nowhere near as extreme as the stuff you would go on to do. Nowhere near that, we definitely fall into like kind of like raunchy, like it way Johnny Thunders is, that kind of vein, or Stooges. But his singing is amazing on on this record, and he does all the drumming as well. The guitar playing's amazing, and once again, it gets no respect. But people I know that do know the record love it. Like "Don't Talk to Me" is one of the greatest like punk songs ever written. I mean, it's so catchy. I'm like, why wasn't this a hit? And I can see why he kind of lost his mind. He got so bitter and psychotic. I mean, this album should have been a hit. It should have, once again. But I just think he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Um, the songs in there like, Unpredictable, BPP, One Man Army. I mean, the list goes on and on. But it definitely, Automatic is one of my favorites off of it too. Bored to Death. And yeah, it's just punk as fuck, and it's just as catchy as anything, the Ramones did. Um, like any Johnny Thunders record, like his Raging stuff. And there's a sophistication to the songwriting, on there as well. I mean, every song just gets stuck in your head. And he has so much potential. And it's kind of almost ahead of its time, I think, in a lot of ways. And I always wondered with that record too, was because it just kind of bombed when it came out. I'm like, is that why I lost it? Kind of switched everything up. It's like, well, I just wrote the best record of my life. If you guys aren't going to pay any attention to me, then I'm going to make sure you pay attention from now on. So I've always wondered, if that had anything to do with it.
That's interesting. I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I kind of put myself in his shoes. That's how I would feel, because they weren't listening to the good stuff. But when he started to do what he went on to do, now everyone's paying attention. Now I'm getting a movie made about me. Like, I almost don't blame the guy. I mean, he took it to a whole new level, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, extreme. And, and there's an art to that. I still consider all of that art, pushing boundaries, pushing things to the extreme, seeing how much people put up with, how much you can get away with. Fascinating. Fascinating guy. And, and he could do really repulsive stuff, at the same time too. But, you can't say the guy was boring, But that record in particular, when I heard that and the choruses on that record are so contagious, so catchy. And that combined with that, like Back from Samoa, had a lot to do with why the Prostitutes was originally formed. Because I'm like, I want to be doing songs like this, I wanted to try to do something like that where it's just, short, like in your face, like loud, catchy, just like pulverizing guitars, and had a lot to do with, I guess, with the incorporation of melody into the Prostitute sound. It's kind of the way it's delivered on that record. I thought it was really cool. And it deliver like these kind of bubblegum melodies and kind of wrap them up like a punk rock package and kind of make it just gritty, raunchy, offensive, and still just have this great melody going. So I was like, shit, man. I'm like, that takes talent to do that. That's not an easy thing to do. That's just not something anyone can do.
Right.
But if you'd hear her singing at the end, you'd be like, oh, this guy could, sing if he wanted to. And it's so far from the truth because he could at one point. He was, a very talented musician, good guitar player, great drummer. I love the drumming on that first album. It's remarkable, So I mean, you could hear that he put his heart and soul into it, and just no one cared, That's kind of the tragedy of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's
Yeah,
a
you
few
can actually
moments.
totally hear that though. Like now, if I think about those Prostitutes records, and it just makes total sense. You got that early GG,
Yeah.
and you've got the Angry
Angry
Samoans,
Samoans, yeah.
that whole formula for like snotty punk rock. And then I think about a band like the Gaggers that was kind of like the next generation of the Prostitutes, and yet they would have loved GG too.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the Gaggers with Marco. That Gaggers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, they're great. I love their records. Great band. Yeah, good call on that. Yeah, that's a cool comparison. And, you think that would have inspired? I mean, yeah, you're right. It kind of laid down the groundwork or the framework for snotty punk rock. To me, that's where I kind of got the idea from. And I wasn't thinking, well, I would have started a snotty punk rock band. It wasn't like that. I was like, I just want something that gets people's attention the way those records caught mine, like instantly within the few minutes of hearing them. I was like, I want to do that. There's like an urgency, to it, and it's frantic, but it's melodic, catchy, and and it's edgy, man. It's pushing boundaries too, and it's doing all of that like in a 2-minute song, and to me that's an impressive feat. I'm impressed by it. So, yeah. So yeah, definitely, I would say definitely laid the groundwork for snotty punk rock, and those two bands, along with the Pagans, the early Prostitutes, probably like I'd say our three biggest influences, like, what we kind of wanted to be, or kind of like model ourselves after, just raw, melodic, trashy, just over the top. It's cool. It's cool.
Everything a proper punk band should be.
That's what I think. Yeah, that's what I think. So if I hear stuff like, or back then, hear stuff like AFI, or what I'm talking about, I'm like, I don't know where these guys are coming from. I can't relate. I don't know what they considered to be punk when they were growing up. I'd love to know. I guess Queen or something. They might have thought. I don't know how you consider Queen to be punk. And there are some Queen tunes I like. But, it's like more like, it has more in common with like prog rock than it does, I don't know, the Angry Samoans, Pagans, early G.G. Allen, something like that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Yeah. Or more in
There you go,
common
kids.
with Queensryche. It's like that kind of singing. I can't stand it. That's just me.
This is the second show in a row Queensryche gets mentioned.
We're going to be banging on Queensryche.
When did they last get mentioned?
Our hated bands episode.
That guy's voice just really, it's like fingernails going out. When I hear it, it puts me in a really bad mood. I get really upset. Yeah, I get really violent. Like I want to kill someone. Like not in a good way, like in an evil way. I just hate his voice. Oh man, I hate his voice. He's right. Yeah, I mean, you want to torture me, make me like try to like sit in a room and sit through one of their albums. He's right. I would climb it up the walls. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah,
that's like everything that our friend Ken hates about Rush.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't.
Take all the worst parts of Rush and expand them,
yeah.
and then you have Queensryche.
Yeah, Queensryche is a Rush on steroids, right?
That's an interesting way of putting it.
What do you
They are the
guys find
opposite
like?
of the pagans.
We're more like Rush on steroids, yeah. And I'm sure there's people out there that'd be like, "That's awesome, man! Like, where do I pick that up?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, that's hilarious. So, shit. Um, okay. Next record. Now this, um, I consider this record at this point. I thought about this for a few years. I first heard this when I was 13, and this did change my life forever. How I approach music. Um, Made me want to start a band, start playing bass. That was the first instrument I started on when I was 13. And then the greatest rock record of all time, and that would be the New York Dolls' debut album. So that blew my mind when I heard it. And it was just something about it. To this day, um, it's beautiful and jarring all at the same time. Some of the catchiest rock and roll ever written. Some of the coolest guitar riffs ever written. You look at songs like like Bad Girl, Looking for a Kiss, Private World, Trash, and there's just like this rawness. I don't know, it's in the moment kind of sound of the record. And from what I know about it, I guess Jack Douglas, the engineer, had a lot to do with it, and he went on to produce the first Cheap Trick record. Kind of similar in sound, that kind of raw, kind of everything's in the red kind of sound. And when I first like those vocals, first kick in on Personality Crisis.
Oh man.
Yeah, um, it was just like the ugliest, most beautiful thing I'd ever heard like at that point in time. Just the delivery, the scream, and there's like this darkness, to that. There's a darkness to the whole record. And a lot of that's the lyrical content as well. It's just kind of the atmosphere. It's so seedy. It's such a seedy sounding, decadent record, and I love it. And it's kind of just in that, live fast, die young vein, and they don't care. They're just going to kind of roll with it, and they're just singing about what they know. And it wasn't a cool thing to listen to, at that point in time. I'd say when I heard it, like 86, 87. But I remember soon after that, I got like my first bass, and I was jamming with my friend who played drums. We were trying to play along with Trash. I mean, our version sounded terrible, but but I mean, that's how much it influenced me. Like I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to play music like this. I want to play in the style. And and for me, like I could figure out a lot of the songs. I just started playing myself. And obviously Johnny Bennett's guitar playing, and just I don't know. I've never heard anything before or after that even comes close to that album. And you can call it glam, you can call it punk, but to me, it's just the perfect rock record. When I think of rock, that's what rock should sound like. New York Dolls. There's just once again like there's an urgency to it. There's just something otherworldly to that record. Where you just as soon as you put the needle on, you get sucked into the world. Whether you like it or not. And I hadn't listened like I hadn't listened to anything that even resembled that up until that point in time. And as soon as I heard it, I wanted to get like a Johnny Leonard solo album. I wanted to get anything that sounded like Dolls.
Yeah.
And I still listen to it. And it's one of those when I put it on to this day, it still feels like the first time I put on a record. It hits me in a way like nothing else does. Like it literally gives me chills when I hear it to this day. Some of those songs, and it just gets the blood flowing, gets me moving, and I just love it. It's just kind of I don't know. It's something that I was never the same after being exposed to that. It definitely took me on the path that I'm still on. So I would say that would be one of the most influential things I've listened to.
Yeah, I mean that. um, have you ever watched the New York Dolls on the Old Gray Whistle test on
Oh yeah,
YouTube?
yeah.
Dude,
It's
I
insane.
watch that. Every now and again, I'll go back and I'll listen to that, and I'm like, gee, that is one of the best like rock and roll performances I've ever seen.
Yeah, the live renditions that you can find, like of those, I mean, they're better than the studio versions, and not many bands
Mhm.
can pull that off. The live versions, once again, there's just something so end of the world. Like they're playing like tomorrow's the end of the world. And I love that about them, and it probably was for them. And that should have sold 5 million copies, and it didn't. It didn't make a dent at the time. Their follow up didn't, and they were history. It should have been the biggest thing ever. But Ziggy Stardust was the biggest thing ever when it came out, and I think that Dolls album is, you know, blows away, Ziggy Stardust easily.
Yeah, yeah. I
Blows
think there
away.
was just a little bit too much piss and venom in
And
that
that's what
New
makes
York
it.
Dolls album.
Yeah,
What's really. Have you ever seen that interview? I think it's. Um, I think it's on that Sex Pistols documentary of Sid Vicious talking about the New York Dolls. How
yeah,
he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he was kind of like, you look at that album and you see these dudes dressed up like women, and you think they're going to be like
yeah,
feminine but they
right.
completely were just, vile and nasty and mean. And, like,
It's the most
yes.
aggro thing ever. It's very aggressive.
Yeah, dude.
I don't think rock and roll had ever been played that aggressive until they came along, and it's menacing. It's dark, it's seedy, man, and they sing
It's New
about everything
York.
they're doing. Yeah, and no apologies, man. They don't care. And you're right. It was too much piss and vinegar for the masses. It was too dark and too real. It wasn't escapist enough. Um, it wasn't based in fantasy land, or like some of the glam bands did go in that direction. And some people like to escape. I've never been someone who's into escape. My escapes, I like to escape into things that are real, not fantasy based stuff. But everyone's different. But that's why it appealed to me, and I loved it. I wanted to know more, about like this decadent, seedy, crazy world. You know, these crazy guys, these crazy girls, and all this crazy shit they were doing. And I'm like, I want to live there, man. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I want to do it because I just love the way this record sounds. That's why I want to do it. You know, and
I mean,
that's
how many bands did that album influence? Like it just blows my mind to think
so many.
that's like the template for punk rock, or one of the templates for punk rock. But
Yeah,
then it's also like the seed of like Sunset Strip
Oh, for
hair
sure.
metal. It's just
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and even a huge influence on people like Morrissey.
Oh,
He swears by the record. He gets it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, like I mean, the fact that it just had a life of its own and created so many bands, so many different genres. I mean, I think that's also why it should be up there for the greatest rock record of all time, because it just changed people's lives. And not the way you would think. You know, not like in a We Are the World kind of way. A lot of people probably died younger after listening to it. It's got to have something to be said for it. Um, but it's one of a kind. And I don't think there'll be any topping that record. Or
no, like you put that on and you're like, there was never anything like this before, and there was never anything like it after. It's like
yeah,
nothing else sounds like the New York Dolls.
yeah,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and to this
David
day, yeah,
Johansen's voice, you can, when you hear David Johansen's voice, it's him.
Yeah.
right.
No mistake.
And those have always been my favorite singers. I love where as soon as I just hear it for a few seconds, I know the voice. I don't want a vocalist in a band to sound like someone else. I want them to sound like themselves. That's why I'm listening. I've never understood that. But some people try so hard to sound like someone else. It's like spending your life trying to look and dress like someone else, have the same job they do. Like that's not going to do anything. Like it's not. And people get
Yeah.
stuck in that world. Just I don't know. They're kind of hollow and just so to me, it keeps I don't know uniqueness, individuality, things like that alive when I hear somebody that has their own style, their own sound, and bands that do that musically, and that takes some courage. I definitely think from a band that's not afraid to go out there and just do their own thing. And those are ultimately the bands, at least for me, that I end up listening to, my entire life. You know, and each one kind of has a different mood for different times in my life, and I love that,
Yeah.
to me, that's talent, that's amazing.
Yeah, because
But
there's
yeah,
all those bands that like want to be the New York Dolls now.
yeah,
It's like they're okay, but it's
but
kind of
there's worse
annoying.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. There's worse things. It's cool because I like the style, but at the same time, I'm like just kind of use that as like an influence or like a building block and kind of add your own thing to it. Now, if they're adding their own thing to it, like that's cool. But when it's just like a paint by numbers, karaoke version of the Dolls, and they're just changing a chord here and there, changing a lyric here and there, I don't get why you'd be doing that. Now if they were like 13 or 14 doing that, yeah, I get it, because I was like that too. But yeah, I mean, you're like 40. That's just me. I don't get it. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not going to be fooled into thinking you're the second coming of the Dolls because you sound like a poor man's New York Dolls.
Right.
I don't understand the logic behind it, but it's weird. It's weird, but there's worse things you could be out there doing. I'd rather see that than see them trying to sound like Bad Religion.
That's true.
So that's
One Bad Religion is
Queensryche.
bad enough.
or Queensryche or Rush. Yeah, yeah. Like those are bands like they're just kind of like a Dolls like knockoff. Like if they're playing locally, I'll just go for something to check out and do, and it'll be all right. But you could do so much more with it, and I'm not sure why they're not doing more with it. Why they're not adding a little more originality? Like a little more personality to it. Like I want to know about you. I don't want to know about how much you love the New York Dolls. But some people don't like that. They, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's like a personality crisis, right? Yeah, that was bad. Um, but yeah, that album's just yeah. So I did have to include that, and then going on since I did the greatest rock record of all time, I'm gonna move on to what I consider to be the greatest punk record of all time, and I think you'll dig it. That's gonna be the Ramones' "Leave Home."
Mm.
And that's for a lot of reasons. Reason number one, Carbona not glue. Reason number two, what's your game? Reason number three, you're going to kill that girl. Um, this record, I picked this cassette up when I first had it. It was on cassette around maybe like a few months after I got that first New York Dolls record. And all I had been exposed to was Ramones Mania. So of course I just wanted to get anything that they had done, and luckily that was like what was left in the store at the time was "Leave Home." And man, once again, that reaffirmed my decision. That like I need to start a punk rock band. I need to make music that sounds like this. And coming from the same place, decadent, dark, seedy, but probably with more of a sense of humor going on with it. But there's this, I would definitely say for Ramones album, it's always kind of hit me as like a dark album, but super catchy, and the songs on it are so classic and so good. To me, that's like the Ramones' greatest hits is like the "Leave Home," record. And it's just like great song after great song. I love the debut, but to me, it's even better because they kind of like hit their stride. I think on number 2, like the production's better. They've taken the songwriting up a notch. They're kind of incorporating some more elements. The band's tighter, the sound's fuller. It kind of hits you harder. And in my book, I think that's the hardest they've ever sounded would be on that album. You know, the Punkist, and you know,
Yeah, I agree. But like like you said, you got songs like Pinhead,
yeah.
Commando, and then Swallow My Pride.
Oh, that's a
Right
great
there in
one.
the middle.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
but
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Then
yeah,
that's shit. There's a big one I'm missing off of there. Glad to see you go. Glad to see
yeah,
you go.
Mm.
Oh, that's one of my all-time favorite Ramon songs. Man, it's great, and you don't hear. I mean, Pinhead, you do hear a lot. Commando, but you know, you'd think the other songs would get a little more airplay or a little more credit, and I don't think it gets the credit that it deserves. You know, Leave Home, because I think they've never sounded better. To me, they, in a weird way, they almost peak on that album. There are a lot of people that would disagree, but to me, in terms of like the first phase of the Ramones, they peaked on that second album. But I do love almost everything they've ever done. I've seen them live when they were around, saw them live a million times. Always an amazing show. And I even like the last 3 records they did. I don't think there's a Ramones record I dislike. So when I claim it's the ultimate punk record and the ultimate Ramones record, um, I'm not putting down any of their other releases. Those are all just as great. Um, so yeah, definitely. I even dig, like End of the Century. Um,
sure.
my younger days, I wasn't as crazy about it, but I'd say in the past 10 years, I really dig that album. And such great songwriting, man. And now there's a band that can repeat themselves, but when they repeat themselves, they kind of, I don't know, they kind of like add a twist to it or kind of change it up. Sometimes they don't, but it doesn't bother me when it's the Ramones. They're the only band that gets a free pass on that one. With repeating
Yeah.
themselves, and I like it. I enjoy it with them, but no one else. So yeah,
It's almost impossible to do it, but
Because I
they
feel
spent
like
like most of the 80s like
yeah.
trying to get a hit and having producers that didn't
Yeah.
understand them. So there
yeah,
was always a little different sound with each album.
Yeah, and I feel like they hit a vein in rock and roll. Like, they had just the right influences, and that makes their sound timeless the way it did bands like the Beach Boys, all the Phil
yeah,
Spector
yeah,
stuff, all the Ronettes, all the stuff that were that they were influenced by. They tapped and they did it like you said, their own way, and that sound made it as timeless as all their influences.
Combined with the
Um,
Stooges.
yeah.
yeah,
And then
Combined
like,
with
okay, and
Stooges.
we love the Bay City Rollers.
I love that.
yeah,
Though.
yeah.
I love
Ohio
that.
Express, all that. Yeah,
Just to have that idea, like, hey man, let's have a band that sounds like a cross between like the Stooges and the Bay City Rollers. Like that's genius in itself.
yeah, yeah.
Like I wish
That's a
I would have
great
come up with that idea.
comparison.
Great idea, man. Like, and there's another. I love watching their old footage, man. Like the very old footage before they're like super tight live. I like that stuff even better, but they're all raggedy sounding, and I think it's great. I love it. And so that's kind of what, at the same time, what makes Leave Home so great because they kind of like hit their stride, like with everything, and it's a pure version of the band. Like I like the '80s stuff, but at that point they're having a lot of session musicians come in. Pretty much Walter Lure is doing all the guitar tracks. Johnny was paying him like just the base like musician scale rate at that point to come in and kind of like retrack everything, and then which changes up their sound because it almost starts to sound too polished. It's not Johnny
Yeah.
Ramone playing. I'm like, he doesn't play shit that intricate. He wants to hire a band, and that's what he was doing because he just didn't feel like doing it. So I'll just give Walter $200 to come in and play my parts, and he can knock out the whole album in 90 minutes. You know, which is kind of weird, you know. But that's a whole other story, I'm sure. But, you know, and then I'm sure, like, you know, Dee Dee's influence in the band kind of starts to wane going into the 80s, you know. So that's why I like the real early stuff, because it's them like playing the instruments, it's them doing all the songwriting, and the producers kind of just, you know, the production, they're just letting them do their thing. They're not trying to alter their sound. You know, so what a great
Yeah.
record. I would say that would be my recommendation for like the Ramones record stuff. Yeah. What blows my mind is just listening to it earlier today, and I was like, man, it's a fucking great record. So yeah, that's a classic. Yeah, that was a game changer too. Changed my life forever. So it's like the clouds parted kind of moment.
Sure.
Definitely.
For sure.
For a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's, you know, like the best foundation I think any musician could have. You know, New York Dolls and Who Knows Leave Home. You know, take it from there. You know, those would be my recommendations. Anyway, um, then moving on the list, and then kind of switching up genres a little bit. I would say, actually, I would rate this as the greatest post-punk record of all time. And that would be the Psychedelic Furs debut LP. Fucking love it. This blew my mind, and this was a big influence on me too, going into the Prostitutes. I had picked this up maybe like 2 years before I started the band. I think in '94 was when I first heard this. And, I'd been a Furs fan, but at that point, all I really knew was like Forever Now and Mirror Moves, which are great new wave records, post punk records. But the first record, man, it's like this crazy mixture. It's like the Sex Pistols meets Bowie. It's always kind of how
Yeah.
and I mean, it's definitely something you have to listen to. You know, side A and then go to side B, and your mind's just blown. You know, definitely moody, introspective, but at the same time, you know, Richard Butler is one of my all-time favorite vocalists. You know, that I admire or strive to be. I don't really sound like him, but I love his style. I love the lyrics, his rhythm, the syncopation. There's a lot of, and on that first record, there's a lot of venom going on. You know, so you know, the punk influence is definitely there. I mean, there's songs where it gets pretty snotty. You know, you've got stuff like "We Love You," "Fall." That might be, it's one of my all-time favorite songs. Probably my all-time favorite verse song. Shit, there's so many, but you know, at the same time, there's some slower stuff on there too. Um, it's almost like some of it's almost like kind of hypnotic,
Yeah.
drony sounding stuff like "Wedding Song." I love that too. And the fact they could go from like, I don't know, almost, it's hard to describe, like heavy punk influence post punk to kind of like slower, moodier songs with like this kind of spidery guitar playing, and kind of blew my mind too. And at that point, when I mean their record came out, the sound they're doing, nobody else was really doing that, you know, at that point in time. So, and you don't hear that much about, you know, that first record. Now my friends love it, you know, like just in small like, music discussions, you'll hear it come up. But I definitely don't think it gets the praise it deserves. You know, to me, I think it's a very groundbreaking record. Um, it covers a lot of different territory, while kind of staying true to their own sound throughout. And it's just, I don't know, it's something with the way his vocal sound. You know, one of those singers, you ought to know it's him right away. You know, within a few seconds of a song, and it's always done with me. It's still something it's always kind of on constant rotation. I always go back to it, and it's timeless, you know, in a lot of ways. It's one of those I think if you haven't heard it here for the first time, like it's going to stick with you. It's one of those records. It's hard to walk away from. You know, I think all of their output's pretty decent. They have a few albums that are not so hot, but I definitely say the first three records are right up there. If you're
Yeah.
talking post-punk and like pure post-punk, kind of like how that Waitresses record to me is pure new wave. I consider that first album, pure post-punk, what it was supposed to be. And they're not striving too hard for a radio hit or anything like that. Like they're kind of, I think it's Steve Lillywhite, I'm sure is the producer on that one. He just kind of lets them do what they do and just makes them sound really good while they're doing it. But yeah, it's like hypnotic and menacing all at the same time. And it's deep. I think it's a very deep record. It gets stuck in your head. It's kind of dark and moody, and it's helped me through some really, really crazy depressing times. It's one of my go-tos. Something soothing about it too.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, we're starting to lose your sound again. Sorry.
How's that? Can you hear me good?
Yeah, now you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, this. I mean, you might not agree, but I whenever I hear psychedelic furs mentioned, I always think three of from that era of like debut albums to me that untouchable. First psychedelic furs, first Jesus and Mary Chain, first Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yeah.
It's like those three like records from that time and that kind of similar, sound kind of. Maybe Jesus and Mary Chain were a little bit more out there, but like I think
definitely.
those three, man, are like the holy trinity of that,
golden age of post-punk.
Yeah, melodic post-punk.
I like that. The Holy Trinity. No, I like your Holy Trinity. Yeah, you nailed it. And that's kind of the cool part because it's the same kind of attitude as punk, the same approach, the same simplicity, but at the same time you can go a totally different direction. Kind of using those elements. It doesn't have to sound like the Sex Pistols. It doesn't have to sound like the Clash. You can, do what the Psychedelic Furs did, which I don't even know what to, and it's minimalistic, but yet it's like sophisticated at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the songs are just like kind of like bass drones, just a few chords, a few notes, and they totally take that and make it into this like massive sound all their own. But I would definitely say his vocals are kind of what ties it all together. Once that vocal comes in, to me, it's hypnotic. You're kind of drawn into their world that they kind of present. And it's cool and it's dark, it's dreary, depressing, but contagious, catchy, and addictive. All at the same time. So
yeah, for sure.
A lot of appeal. And then I think we are on to number 10. Yeah, I think this is here. Well, no, I might be wrong. Wait, hold on.
8. This will be 8.
8, right? I have 2 more. Because
or Psychedelic Furs was 8, and then 2 more. Yeah.
2 more. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this makes sense. Yeah. So these go definitely before the Prostitutes were around, probably more in my high school years when I had my band Mainliner going on. And I'd seen these guys quite a few times. They used to play in the area in Lancaster a lot. And the record I'm going to go with would be the Screaming Trees Buzz Factory on SST Records from 1989. And I kind of wanted to include this because it's something kind of completely different from the rest. And I never really think of them as like, I don't know, a grunge band. To me, it's kind of like a dark, psychedelic garage band, especially witnessing it live. And like they blew me away. Amazing live band. Screaming Trees during that time period, like late 80s, early 90s in there. What they were capable of on stage. It's just a 4-piece, sounded massive, and Mark Lanigan would be up there. I think it's like a Chameleon Club, and smoking a cigarette the entire time, like he was singing, and sounded like $1 million. And it's for me, I just always really I dug that kind of like the nicotine stained baritone that he has. And it really kind of got to me at the time because the guitar is kind of like fuzzed out, a lot of wah wah in there, but the approach, in a lot of ways, shares a lot in common with like punk or even post punk because there's a lot of simplicity to it. It's just a few chords for every songs, um, with like these catchy little leads that are only like a few notes. Um, but it's a lot of dark poetry. Um, and it was kind of a point in my life, I'd say, like back in high school, where these kind of like really kind of like dark, depressing songs, like they would do. Um, I don't know, like when I was feeling down, kind of feeling depressed, the other music I was listening to like wouldn't appeal to me. So with Buzz Factory, it kind of gave me like a world I could go into when I was depressed and kind of have a soundtrack to it because it was just as dreary as how I was feeling. And I liked that there was this record that kind of matched the way I was feeling with like this gloomy outlook. And they live in this town where it rains all the time and there's nothing to look forward to and everything's just a big downer. And, lyrical content, the musicianship, um, I loved it. I mean, it's a really rocking record with a lot of catchy tunes on it. Played very aggressively. I wouldn't say there's anything wimpy about it. I mean, they definitely delivered. Um, and the recording, Jack and Dino produced it. He totally captures them, and it's just to me, it's a very in your face sound. But you have to dig like his baritone and kind of like the psychedelic damage guitar playing. If you don't dig those elements, it's not a record you're going to get into. Like I wouldn't call it a punk rock record, but it was like kind of an outlier. Punk, influenced their sound somewhat, on there. And I haven't really heard anything before or after, that sounded like that band. I wasn't crazy about their later stuff that they did, but that period of the band, um, like Buzz Factory and there's Uncle Anesthesia, the record that came after it. I thought those were great. I saw it live. Definitely worth checking out if you want to hear something different or just dark psychedelic rock. That's really heavy with some punk influence into it. You know, so it's kind of one I wanted to include in there. And for me, it might be more of a nostalgia thing, but there's times where I've written like songs and stuff. And I'll be like, shit, why does that sound familiar? And I'll go back and listen to this record, and it's like a guitar line or guitar riff that's on there. So I'm like, shit, like it influenced me in ways I didn't realize. So
Interesting.
yeah, and that's why I thought I would include it. I'm like, shit, because it stuck with me, and I still go back to it a few times a year. Just wild, wild record, wild sound, but not for everyone. Definitely an acquired taste or one of those bands. I think they make a lot more sense if you would have seen it live, like around that time period.
Yeah.
And then you'd get into a lot more, kind of thing. But I never thought they had a lot in common with, like the other grunge or stuff at the time, like like Pearl Jam or Soundgarden. They didn't have anything to do with that, and that's what I liked about them. So something different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not familiar with that like at all.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'll check it out. I mean, you sold me.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good record. I think you would dig it. It's not boring. They definitely do their own thing, but I would say it has more in common. Like it's like heavy psychedelic garage is the best way I can describe it.
uh-huh.
And
Oh,
with that,
that's good.
low baritone, kind of singing, and the lyrics are, pretty cool, pretty cool. So it's not cheesy or anything like that. Definitely doing their own thing, and it wasn't like a very popular sound, until I think Singles, when that movie came out, they had like a sound on the soundtrack, and that was like their breakthrough.
Yeah, yeah, they had that.
But
I nearly lost you there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I would definitely say that's probably like their poppiest thing they ever did. Like nothing on Buzz Factory sounds like that. It's way darker, and yeah, a lot of piss and vinegar going on with that record. Gloomy and dark.
Key ingredients.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I like. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Definitely. But at the same in the same vein, rounding out my list, and this is just one of my all-time favorite records, and I just have loved it from the first time I ever heard it. Once again, not quite like in the punk vein, and that would be the Afghan Wigs Up in It, um, their record, and that's on Sub Pop. That was produced by Jack and Dino as well. Um, and I, it's crazy, man. It's like that whole record. It's like this gritty R&B kind of crossed with early replacements. Um, what else would I say? And you could say like I don't know, almost early Nirvana to some extent. But the shit's so catchy. But definitely a big replacements influence going on with the Up In It record, which is their debut for Sub Pop. And a variety of song structures going on with this one. They've got fast stuff, slower stuff, kind of the soulful, kind of screamy, kind of singing going on. And I love Greg Dooley's vocals, very raspy, kind of heartfelt, some wild guitar playing, like a lot going on. And they would have been a band that I would say was unfairly lumped in with like the grunge movement because I don't think there's anything grunge in their sound. But man, I'm up in it. It rocks like a motherfucker. You know, from the first time I heard it, I could stop listening to it. Just great songwriting, catchy songs, and just a very aggressive, yeah, rock record, an aggressive rock record with like some eclectic kind of like R&B influences thrown in, and then there's some weird post punk stuff thrown in. Um, but I love it. I love it to this day. So that's kind of why I had to list it. Um, it's it's never kind of like left the rotation. I always go back to it a few times a year, and I just don't hear a lot about it. I think a lot of people that are like big fans of that band regard it as their weakest record, and I think it's their best record actually. And I'm like that with a lot of bands. Like to me, I've always thought Motorhead's best record was Rock and Roll, and a lot of people think that's the worst. One of Motorhead's worst records. I think it's genius. I love it. I know like every lyric on there. Know every song. I've covered them like in bands I was in high school. But that's just me. That's kind of where my tastes are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny how so many bands that didn't have a lot in common with, you know, Nirvana, Mudhoney, whatever, just kind of got lumped right. It just kind of scooped
Right.
up. But in a way, it was kind of good for them because it's like thing like that old what's that old saying about all the ships rise and the you know
Yeah.
in the high tide. It's like they towed Nirvana and those guys towed that line for all these guys. But
They
A lot
did
of bands
because
sold a lot of records.
they did. They did. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't think they would have, had the recognition that they got had it not been, for the Nirvanas and all that stuff. They kind of got to ride the tide with them. And like I said, both those records came out with being on Sub Pop in regards to like Screaming Trees and Afghan Wigs. Like that stuff kind of blew my mind, at the time because like it was brand new, like when that stuff came out, and nobody else sounded like that at that point in time. And these are all guys who were coming out of the punk scene. And instead of, whereas like 10 years earlier, you had
Did we lose Kevin?
90. You know, still there?
Yeah.
Okay, it went out.
We lost you for a second.
Yeah, that's what happened here. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But in a way, like how I dug like the post-punk records, it was an example of like 10 years later, kind of taking those like the same foundation as punk and like doing something different with it. To me, that's what the early Sub Pop records were like, and I dug it, when they first came out, the singles, the albums, like it was cool. It was cool, You also had the Dwarves, and they had heavier stuff, but
Yeah.
kind of like the time and place of the whole thing. Whereas now you look back upon it, people are like, oh, it's Sub Pop or whatever, but it was cool when it came out, and you had to go to the independent record store to get it. It wasn't easy stuff to come by.
Right.
So, and you knew if it was on that label, it would be somewhat okay, kind of like back when you could judge what, I don't know, when labels kind of had a sound that went along with them.
Yeah.
And that's disappeared over the years. I kind of miss that one.
It was pretty loose, though. That's what I like about Sub Pop. It was,
yeah.
No, the bands didn't all sound the same, but you had a general idea that if you were into Sub Pop, you would like anything on Sub Pop.
Right. Yeah.
Like SST or Discord or
SST.
Twin Tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I guess, where I screwed up. The Afghan Wigs, that was on Sub Pop, and the Screaming Trees was on SST. But yeah, very similar aesthetic and like approach to it. You kind of had an idea of, what you're getting yourself in for, and but there was still kind of a wide range, because Sub Pop also did like a Lazy Cowgirl single, and they had straight ahead rockers on there, and like the Dwarves. I mean, they were a Sub Pop mainstay forever, and but it was disappointing if you bought other bands on Sub Pop and thought they were going to sound like the Dwarves. Man, the Dwarves, you were in for a big surprise.
Yeah.
Which sometimes, was a major letdown. There was some shit that they put out where I was like, yeah, I can't get on board with this, but yeah, that's
it's kind of like how I remember Sympathy, like Sympathy for the record industry.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this was really good. Then you get some of the next others, you're like, oh.
Yeah. It's hit or miss.
Right.
Because I would have like a few in a row where I was like, yeah, I love it. Like, there's no way. Like, how's this possibly going to be bad? And I'd put it on. I'd be like, I don't know. Maybe it's just somebody who's friends with a label and he's putting out his friend's record, or that's always how I interpret it. I could be wrong, but
no. But it's funny, like how many things you get, and then you kind of re-listen to it years later. And you're like, okay, I get it now.
Right.
Oh, that's what I was missing. The maturity, I guess. I don't know.
And that could be it. Yeah. And I have a few bands like that, or records where at the time I was just completely, dismissive of them. And now when I go back and listen, I'm like, oh shit, this is actually a good record,
Yeah.
Yeah. You're young and dumb. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Hey, at least we came around sooner or later.
Yeah. But that was definitely cool. It was fun doing that list, and I just kind of wanted to have like a kind of wide range, stuff that kind of influenced me, or stuff for people to check out, like off the beaten path.
And we could tell how it would have like influenced the music you made, and that's what's great. The Prostitutes weren't trying to be one band. You had many influences, and you can kind of put all that stuff together. You can put the new wave and the post-punk in there too, and especially makes sense of what you've been doing, in your later years, and it all comes together.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, and I can hear it now more than I think I could then, like where the influences start to show up and kind of come through. And when you kind of listen to stuff, at that age, or you're like your teen years, early 20s, man, it shapes you into who you are, and it's kind of becomes, I think, like part of your I think as a songwriter, kind of part of your subconscious after a while, and the influence comes out. You're not even aware of it. It's not a conscious attempt. Like, oh, I want to show people I listen to this album by this band. Like, it just comes out and you're playing, or, and it's kind of cool. And you're like, shit, I hope I listen to the right stuff, So yeah, it's wild.
I was going to say, so what have you got going on musically?
Oh, okay.
That people can
Yeah.
kind of keep an ear out for.
Sure. What it's going to be coming out. So we approved the test pressing, so it should be about a month on Solid Records. What we do have coming out, that's going to be the Prostitutes retrospect LP, and this has unreleased tracks, demo tracks, comp tracks, um, a few of the single tracks as well, and it kind of spans. It's 19 shit. It's 91 shit, 91 through like 2019, and that's going to be on Solid Records. And that's going to be a 12-inch limited edition vinyl, and all the old stuff. Even there's a few previously released songs. They've all been remastered. Sounds better than ever. And other things were demos. The late '90s Prostitutes had done. So we just kind of took the best of the best, and yeah, it's a collection. Of everything I've been doing, and then with the band throughout the decades. So I'd say it's our Prostitutes definitive statement. If you want to get the Prostitutes experience, definitely do this record.
Nice.
So that should be out in about a month. And then same time, Trouble Seekers. We just did an instrumental called Hypnotic that came out. And that was like the other week we did that. But that's about all I got going on right now. But currently writing, like I said, got some other collaborations coming up. So I'll have some new stuff out soon in one form or another, or in one band or another, some way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where can people go to keep like your social media, right? You got
Yeah. If you go to I guess it would be Toots Punk on Instagram at Toots Punk, you'll find it, and then on Facebook it's the same thing. Toots Punk is what it's listed under, like Facebook.com / Toots Punk, and then the same deal with Instagram. So that's where you'll find us. Yeah, Instagram and Facebook. Oh, and Bandcamp. Um, on Bandcamp, I believe we're listed under it's the Prostitutes one. But if you just like put in the name, like the Prostitutes Punk Band, whatever, you'll find it on Bandcamp. I think it's the Prostitutes one at Bandcamp, as in the number one, the one after the word, the two word with the Prostitutes one is the listing on Bandcamp.
All right. Well, as always, Kevin, it was a pleasure having you on. Great conversation. Come back whenever. We love having you. So
Definitely, man. No, I had a blast. It was fun doing it. It was fun going through those records and talking about everything we did. Yeah, I had a great time. So yeah, I was looking forward to it. It's kind of cool when we get a chance to get caught up and see how each other's doing. So yeah, I had a great time, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, he's got to keep coming on to keep pace with Adam T.
Of course,
I think Adam T is right on his tail for total appearances.
Oh, shit. Shit. What's Adam at? What's Adam at? How many times
he's one behind you?
Am I the leader? Am I the leader?
Yeah, I think you're the leader right now.
Yeah, I think you just edged him out here.
Shit. So I am the official Alec Baldwin of the show.
Yeah, I think
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Martin.
Steve Martin. Yeah. I'll take it. Right on. Yeah, I'd love to be back on, man. You know me. I love talking music, talking records. I can do it for hours on end.
Cool, man. Yeah, always welcome. Man.
Awesome.
But cool. Well, I guess that about does it for this episode of the Born Too Late program. If your podcast provider allows it, please, we'd appreciate a review, a rating, whatever. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Instagram only at Born Too Late Podcast. If you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, go ahead and shoot us an email at borntoolatepod@gmail.com. And on behalf of Josh and our special guest, Kevin McGovern, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.